Okay, so any fluid you can use as lubricant, but it should have some specific property uh, to behave as lubricant. So as we know, we use lubricant to reduce friction and wear. So what are the most important properties of lubricant that we are talking about? So can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the properties of lubricant, if you think of, the most important property for lubrication is the first one is the viscosity, and the second one is the density. I am writing as I am speaking. So are you getting the real-time screen?
Yes, sir. Right now it's
Yes.
fine.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Let us go ahead. So these two properties are very much important as far as lubrication is concerned for any fluid. Other than this, there are also other properties which are also important as far as lubricant is concerned. So other properties are like specific heat. Okay. Then we have thermal conductivity. Then we have acidity and alkalinity. Then you have oxidation stability. Then we have flash point. Then foaming. We have pour point. Then we have de-emulsibility. Okay, so if you get hold of any fluid mechanics book, you'll find these are the properties of fluid. So these properties are also important for a fluid to behave as lubricant. These are very standard. Most of you already know. So still I suggest you go through these properties. What are these properties all about? So let's say what is pour point? Anyone? Pour point is a point, that is the temperature at which oil fails to flow. That is called pour point. Now last one, if you see de-emulsibility. What is emulsibility? Forget about D. What is emulsibility? Emulsibility is ability of a fluid to mix with another fluid. So we do not need that. This is very important for us. Now imagine fluid also is used for metal coating. We use some kind of fluid for metal coating. Probably you have seen earlier in your workshop maybe. In metal coating also we use fluid, and there we use a mixture of fluid. So there emulsibility means the ability to mix with another fluid. So metal coating fluids should have emulsibility capability, but for us, for lubricant, we should have de-emulsibility capability. That means the lubricant should not mix with other fluid. For example, you might be knowing we were using two-stroke vehicles earlier. If you remember long back, not that long back, but in two-stroke vehicles, like mobile, we used to use engine oil or mobile. in two-stroke vehicle, when people feel petrol or something, they mix mobile in the petrol itself. But that engine oil or mobile is having de-emulsibility capability. So therefore, it doesn't actually mix with the petrol. It goes with the petrol, but it doesn't actually mix. It stays as it is. So therefore, it lubricates the piston ring cylinder or any moving parts along with the where petrol goes, it goes with that. So similarly, our lubricant should have de-emulsibility capability so that it should not mix with other fluids or other working fluids in a system. So it should always stay separate and do its job of lubrication. Okay, so I suggest you go through these properties that I am mentioning here and study from any fluid mechanics book. Now let us see, our important point is the viscosity. Let us see what is this viscosity all about. So viscosity is the resistance to flow. Imagine you have a plate. Here I have a plate and there is fluid layer here. Let's say there is fluid layer here. So this gap is filled with fluid. Okay. So if you are dragging this plate with a velocity, let's say u equal to capital U, and this is the bottom surface which is stationary where small u equal to 0. So you are dragging the fluid, we are dragging the plate with a velocity capital U and the bottom surface is having a velocity 0, and this is separated by a gap h. This is a constant gap h, and then you can imagine the fluid layer adjacent to this plate, the fluid layer adjacent to this plate. Let's say this is a fluid layer adjacent to the plate will have the velocity capital U, but imagine the fluid layer adjacent to this will have a velocity 0. So if you join these two together, so variation will be like this. So fluid layer so basically it's a linear variation. This variation is linear. It varies from u equal to 0 to u equal to capital U, some velocity. So see, imagine these are the fluid layers. These are the fluid layers. These fluid layers are gaining velocity from 0 to capital U. So in that case, this viscosity is defined as the resistance to flow. In each layer, it has some resistance to flow. So finally, it will attain the velocity u, but at the bottom layer, it is 0. So this resistance is offered by the fluid, which is in terms of viscosity. But how exactly it happens? If you see, for Newtonian fluids, your shear stress tau is directly proportional to del u upon del y. That is shear stress proportional to rate of shear. Okay. Now this tau you can also write as eta del u upon del y, where eta is a proportionality constant. And eta is a proportionality constant. We call it as coefficient of viscosity. Or we also call it as dynamic viscosity, or also absolute viscosity. Okay. Now for this case, for the figure I have drawn on the top, for this case, okay, if you see that this, particularly for this case, you can write actually eta equal to, tau equal to eta u, capital U by small h, because it is actually del u upon del y, and for this case it is eta because the gap is constant, so eta and is varying linearly, capital U by h. Then from here you can actually find what is eta equal to tau h by capital U, okay, which is equal to Newton second per meter square, which is already, that is already that is Pascal second. Okay, so this Pascal second is in SI unit, but if you go to CGS, then it will become dyne second per centimeter square. Now this dyne second per centimeter square is also known as Poise. Okay, this is a unit for viscosity. Now this unit is normally a bigger unit, so we go for centipoise, where centipoise equal to poise by 100. So this Cp is normally used for measuring or finding the viscosity. Similarly, we have other term of viscosity. This is called absolute viscosity, this eta, or dynamic viscosity. Now we have also another kind of viscosity, which is kinematic viscosity. Now kinematic viscosity is termed as gamma, which is equal to this dynamic or absolute viscosity divided by rho. Rho is the density. Now if you go for units, it will become meter square per second, which is in SI unit. Now if you go to CGS, you get cm square per second, and this is known as stroke. S-T-O-K-E, there is no R, stroke. And stroke is also a bigger unit. We normally go for centistroke, CS. Here also C is small and P is capital. Here also C is small and S is capital, which is centi, because stroke is a name and poise is also a name. So therefore this will become stroke divided by 100, which is called centistroke. This is called kinematic viscosity, this gamma, and this eta is dynamic viscosity. Now sometimes we define another quantity 1 upon this eta, which is known as fluidity. It is the ability, fluidity is the ability of the fluid to flow. So imagine if the viscosity is very high, the fluid is thick, so it will not flow. So this is a kind of measurer of flow of the fluid. Now this is regarding viscosity. Now regarding density. Density is directly related to the weight of the fluid, and as you know, density is generally measured relative to that of the water, which is specific density, at same temperature and pressure. Now if you see the viscosity measurement, you can unmute yourself and ask if you have any doubt in between. There is no issue. So viscosity measurement generally done with a standard device, and you know all measurements are defined by what is ASTM? Do you have any idea what is the full form of this?
American Society for Testing of Material.
Yes, good. So American Society of Testing Materials, they define all measurements, standard measurements, and they define all units and everything for any experimental measurements. Those are actually standard. So this ASTM defines how to measure the viscosity. So the famous is Seibold universal seconds. So what happens here? There is a container, the volume is defined by ASTM, volume of the container, and the bottom there will be orifice. Now you put specific amount of lubricant as per the marking in the container, and container size and volume and dimension are fixed by this ASTM. Now see, different kind of fluid you put there and measure the timing, how much time it requires to completely vacant the container. Container will having a orifice at the bottom, so liquid will come out of that orifice, and you measure how much time it takes. So that time, if you measure, that is called the Seibold universal second, how much second it takes. If you know that, then your kinematic viscosity gamma will be roughly equal to 0.22, that T minus 180 by T, this much of centi-stroke. Okay, this is kind of empirical formula. So from here you find out what is the kinematic viscosity. Once you find out the kinematic viscosity, then dynamic viscosity will be eta equal to rho into this kinematic viscosity. So this is the way people measure viscosity. But nowadays there are standard devices to measure the viscosity. Let me ask you a question here. Probably you have not done design dynamics lab last semester, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So okay. So we'll be doing that this semester only. But there we have a device which is called rheometer. In rheometer, in real time, you can measure actually viscosity of any fluid. So probably that we can show you how to measure the viscosity of any fluid. That's very interesting. In coming days, we'll see that. Now coming back here, the next important point for us is this viscosity and density, how they change, how mainly the viscosity change. So effect of temperature on viscosity. So how the viscosity changes with temperature. Now why we are talking about temperature? You know, like lubricant is used in mating surfaces, in surfaces where, or in the gap where there is relative motion. When there is relative motion, there is rubbing and friction and wear. So when there is friction, so you know the frictional loss or whatever friction you will get, finally you will get in terms of heat. Heat will be generated in the contact. So that heat will be carried by the lubricant present in the contact. So therefore, when the temperature of the lubricant increases, the viscosity varies a lot with temperature. So therefore, whatever lubricant you are using, so you are measuring everything in room temperature, let us say, and you are using a lubricant in particular machine element. When the machine element is in operation, the temperature in the contact will increase, and it will increase drastically. It's not like 5 degree, 10 degree. Okay. Sometimes it will go like 50 degree, 60 degree more than the room temperature. And then the viscosity will change drastically. So that means whatever lubricant you are using in the contact and thinking to perform well, when the viscosity changes drastically, it will not perform as intended. So therefore, this property is very vital. So let's say temperature increases. So what will happen to oil and what will happen to gas? So first tell me, for oil, what will happen? Whether it will increase or decrease?
Decrease.
Decrease. Good. So for gas,
Increases.
Increases.
can anyone tell me why?
Sir, because in gas, it is due to collisions between the gas molecules, viscosity is present. Whereas in oil, the density decreases, they move apart, so viscosity decreases in oil.
That's good. So basically in oil, it will decrease, but in gas, as your friend says, because of random movement of the molecules, gas molecules, and collision of the gas molecules, the viscosity of the gas will increase. However, the oil will decrease because that is the difference between a compressible and non-compressible fluid. So now how this temperature variation, how the viscosity varies with temperature exactly. So there is no thumb rule to find out. You should always go for testing the particular lubricant to find the viscosity change with temperature. So again, ASTM standard says the viscosity variation is something like this: log 10 of kinematic viscosity 0.8, then n log 10 temperature plus c, where this n and c are two constant. This is empirical relation, and T is the temperature. With temperature, how the viscosity varies. So this is given by ASTM. But as I say, there is no thumb rule. So industries, see, oil companies, like for India, the oil companies like Indian Oil, Bharat Petroleum, they all produce oil. So they don't actually go for this. Okay. So they define a standard quantity. All oil companies, they follow that quantity, which is called as viscosity index. Okay, which is famously known as VI. So what is viscosity index? in the Y, you have kinematic viscosity. In X-axis, you have temperature. Okay. Okay, so what is happening here? This is actually in temperature in degree Fahrenheit, and this is 100 degree. This is 210 degree. Okay, so you can imagine the bottom line here, the bottom one. So the viscosity of the bottom line is not changing. It's a straight parallel line with x-axis. Okay, so here I can give viscosity index of this line to be 100. Fine. Now the top line, which is kind of red. So top line, you can see the viscosity at 100 degree is very high, and it's actually merging with this bottom line or going to be very low at 210. So that means this red color line, the viscosity of the fluid is changing rapidly. So here let us make it viscosity Vi of this top line to be 0. So that means the viscosity of this one, let's say this is H, this is L. So H means this is the highest grade oil and this is the lowest grade oil of viscosity L. So Vi index, we are providing index of 0 here, we are providing index of 100 here. Now what is this green line? So green line, we are going to test viscosity of the oil. Test oil. See, all oil companies, they will have this, or they will have this worst oil, okay, and they will have also standard of this highest grade oil. So both are their upper and lower bounds. Now if they find any new oil, they put in between to test it and find out the viscosity index. Now let us say this is U. So then in that case, the viscosity index of the new test oil Vi of the test oil equal to U minus L divided by H minus L into 100. Okay, so with this formula you will find viscosity index of this new oil. Of this new oil you will find viscosity index. Now what is this L and H, which are very standard? L is referred to Gulf Coast oil, and this H is referred to Pennsylvania oil. Okay, so this is the viscosity index is very important. This is what most of the oil companies still follow today to rank their oils. So how they change with temperature. Now next comes the effect of pressure on viscosity. We saw that what is the effect of temperature on viscosity. Now the next point is effect of pressure on viscosity. So how viscosity varies with pressure. Now similarly, if pressure of a oil increases, so what happens to oil and gas? Can anyone tell me whether it will go up or down? For oil
It doesn't vary much, sir.
with pressure?
Yes, sir.
No, actually it will vary. This for oil. See, you are not restricting any volume or anything, right? So oil when
Decrease.
no,
Increase.
it will increase. Okay, you are compressing it. Okay, so it will basically increase. So both the cases, but how it increases? So again, this will come from the experiment. Of course, exact relation will come from the empirical relations. Empirical relations means what we find from experiment and try to fit a curve and find out the empirical relation. But Barras suggested in 1966, that is called Barras relationship. Okay, so there is viscosity equal to viscosity eta 0 e to the power alpha p. This is e to the power. So eta equal to eta 0 e to the power alpha p. What is the suggestion of Barras? That is the suggestion of Barras. What is this eta 0? Eta 0 is the viscosity at atmospheric condition, at ambient condition, and this eta is the viscosity during operation, depending on the pressure. So what is this alpha? This alpha is called pressure viscosity coefficient. Okay, so again you may ask what is this value, because see, viscosity of oil at ambient condition, this will be known to you, this will be known, and of course pressure, what pressure you are operating, this is also known to you, and then you can calculate this eta. But what is the value of this alpha? This alpha value again, it will come from experiment. So you do a range of experiment and then try to fit this curve and find out the value of alpha, and same value of alpha you go on using for same group of lubricants. So by that you can actually find out the real value of viscosity varying with pressure. Okay. Okay, so next we'll see the difference between, most of the cases the density doesn't vary much, it varies slightly in extreme cases, but the most important point for lubricant is the viscosity. Therefore we have to always be careful about the viscosity of lubricant. Now let us see type of lubricant that we are having in hand. We have Newtonian and we have also non-Newtonian. Okay, Newtonian and non-Newtonian lubricant. What is the difference between Newtonian and non-Newtonian lubricants? As we already discussed, in Newtonian, case of Newtonian, eta is directly proportional to del u upon del y. For non-Newtonian, eta doesn't follow this. It can follow anything for non-Newtonian. So therefore, non-Newtonian fluids behave differently rather than Newtonian fluids. If you draw a curve, so this axis we have tau, which is shear stress. This axis we have rate of shear rate, which is del u upon del y. Now, if you plot the curves for Newtonian, as we already discussed, it is directly proportional to del u upon del y. So we can have a fluid like this. We can have a fluid like this. These two are non-Newtonian. This is Newtonian. Okay, so this is Newtonian. Sorry, I tossed again. So this is called your dilatant. This is called pseudoplastic. This is also called here thinning fluid. This is called okay. Now see the graph. This fluid is Newtonian. This is going up, so this is shear thickening fluid or dilatant, and this is shear thinning fluid, which is pseudoplastic. Now, why shear thickening? Because as you apply pressure, as you apply your velocity, so the shear stress will increase in the fluid. Here, the shear stress will decrease. Here, shear stress will decrease in the fluid. Okay. Now, this type of fluid, the example is blood. Blood is kind of shear thinning fluid, whereas this sugar in water, is kind of shear thickening fluid. Now, example of it, like shear thinning fluid. Imagine the enamel paint or the paint that is used in our house. So how they apply the paint? They use a brush, they rub it on the wall or rub it on the door, and the paint is applied. Basically, if you see the paint in natural state in the bucket or any container, the paint is actually thick. And they put the brush and take some paint in the brush and rub it on the wall or door or wherever they want to paint. When you rub it, at that point, what will happen? Shear thinning occurs. That means suddenly the viscosity of the fluid decreases when you rub it. So by that you can apply the paint evenly throughout the wall. Otherwise, it will be difficult to paint the wall. Now imagine if you have a shear thickening kind of paint, when you rub in wall, it will become thick. So you cannot apply that on the wall to paint uniformly. And for example of shear thickening, have you seen YouTube channel or something like some fluids, those kids where when they are running on the fluid, they will not go in the fluid, but if they just stand on the fluid, then they will go inside the fluid. Their foot will go inside the fluid. Have you seen this kind of video anywhere?
Cornstarch.
Yes, cornstarch. Yes, that is what I am talking about. So those kind of fluid. Now, what is happening? You are applying shear stress. When you apply shear stress, okay, the viscosity when you work on that or when you rub suddenly, the viscosity of the fluid increases rapidly and it becomes thin. It becomes thick. So as it becomes thick, it supports the load. But if you stand on that fluid, then it cannot anymore support that load because viscosity will be low. So you will go inside the fluid. So that is the example of shear thickening kind of fluid. But as a whole, as I say, this only this one is Newtonian. Okay, anything else rather than these are all non-Newtonian. So another kind of non-Newtonian case can be like this also. It will go straight fast. It will follow Newtonian up to certain extent, and then it may go this way, it may go this way, or it may go straight also, another Newtonian curve. So it has two phases. So this kind of fluid also called like Brigham plastic models, and it is very similar to your stress and strain theories. So anything can happen other than this Newtonian, that is called non-Newtonian fluid. So what is tomato ketchup? Any idea? Newtonian or non-Newtonian? Tomato ketchup?
Non-Newtonian.
Non-Newtonian, yes. Now what about the paste you are using for your brush, toothbrush?
Non-Newtonian.
So they are also non-Newtonian. But main thing is that you have to test it to find out whether it is shear thickening kind of fluid or shear thinning kind of fluid or any other sort of non-Newtonian fluid. So only from the experiment you can find out. That is done by a rheometric test. Okay, so that probably we'll see when we do experiment in our design and dynamics laboratory. Okay, so any thing to discuss? Any doubts so far or anything to discuss? So what is your plan? Do you want to follow any book or anything?
Yes, sir.
What book you want to follow? I think the class notes will be sufficient, but still if you want to follow, okay, you can follow. Introduction to Tribology of Bearings. By B.C. Majumdar. Okay. So this is the cheapest book that you'll find in market. But of course, you are not here in campus, so there are also good books in library. Probably you cannot follow that, but still I'm writing here that is the theory of hydrodynamic lubrication by Pincus then you have the principles of lubrication by Cameron. Okay, then also you have fluid film lubrication by Hamrock and Dawson. Hamrock and Dawson. Okay. And same fluid film lubrication or theory of lubrication also you'll find or theory of lubrication also. By M.K. Ghosh, myself, and B.C. Majumdar. So this book will give you the idea of also rotor bearing systems and dynamics of rotor bearing systems. And but you don't require to have this book, so that's fine. For lubrication, you can actually have this book if you want, which is very cheap. I think less than 200, which you can easily buy and have it if you want. Okay. Otherwise, the note will be sufficient. That will be studying in the class, that will be sufficient. Okay, and the assignment that we will be doing, that will clear your doubts. So any questions so far in this class, today's class? Or anything you want to ask? Otherwise, I will close this. Okay, so then that is all. We'll meet in the next class. So if you have any doubt, you can ask me also in the next class.
Okay, sir.
Okay, thank you.